Hi everyone, welcome to the 10th week of interaction session for the course on advanced robotics. So, I am Soumya and I am PMRF fellow at IIT Gandhinagar. We have been doing 9 sessions till now and we have seen a couple of things starting right from kinematics, dynamics, then coming to controller part. Last time what we actually saw was the control part, which was, let's say, PD and PID control, and then it was also independent joint control. Before that we had seen sensors and actuators. Last time we also saw some MATLAB problems for Lyapunov controller, right? So if you're given a nonlinear system, then how do you deal with it? So you can design a Lyapunov controller for the same. So we tried to see how we are going to define some energy based function out of the system that we have been given. Then we try to find out what is the derivative of that energy function, and then based on the definiteness of the v dot x, or the derivative of the energy function that we obtain, based on its definiteness we try to classify if the system is stable, if it is asymptotically stable, or maybe we can't comment. So all of those things we have seen in the last class. So since we are almost done with the stability part, but still today we'll have some questions based on stability, where you're supposed to like find what are the pores of the system and then say if the system is stable or not. Then we're also supposed to find or basically there are questions on force controlled in constraint tasks, force control in constraint tasks. So let's say your task is constrained, let's say you have a wall, you cannot go beyond it if you are applying a force on it. So essentially the crux that you have here from the lecture also, you might have read that force and velocity, both of them cannot be applied simultaneously in the same direction, right? So that is one of the crux that will have of the lecture that we'll have today. And again we are going to see somewhat of PD and PID control today again. And yeah, we'll be doing like 10 questions. If you have any questions in between, feel free to ask. uh, we don't have any MATLAB question today. We always used to have, right, a MATLAB question. Today we won't be having a MATLAB question, but uh, maybe from this part and combining the next part, we'll have it in the next class. So let's have the question next class, and we'll start with the general questions that we have for today. So I would so I'm here to discuss the questions. It would help you in solving the assignments. If you have any problem, do let me know. Also, if you are aware what is the correct answer and all of those things, let me know what is your take on that. Okay? So, okay, let's begin with the first question. So, just a second. Yeah. A single link robot A single link robot is controlled by a PD compensator. You can take it to be PID, a PD controller. Okay. It's called compensator because it sometimes compensates for gain, sometimes for steady state error. That is more of frequency domain thing. So let's assume it to be controller. If you're aware of control systems course, then you would know compensator as well. I'm sure about it. Right? Now, after this, a single link robot is controlled by a PD compensator. So the closed loop characteristic polynomial is given by Js square. What is J? J is inertia. Plus BE plus KKDS plus KKP. So you have KP and KD terms already included here. Okay. Where, okay, let me clarify this. J is your inertia, which is positive. I'll write it separately only. So this is already covered in the lecture, right? I'm just writing it for revision's sake. This is inertia and this is positive, okay? BE is your damping coefficient, it is also positive. Okay, then we have K, it is just a constant. Then we have Kd, which is a derivative gain. You know this already from PD and PID controllers. Okay, this is also positive. Then we have Kp, which is proportional gain, and it is also positive, right? So we are given a second order characteristic equation here, and then this is for a single link robot under PD control, where all of these are given, and then for all positive values of J, B, Kd and Kp, the system is unstable or stable or marginally stable or may not be stable. So this is the question. If you have any idea what is the approach that we should take to find the stability of the system?
Routh-Hurwitz array.
Right, right. Because that appears to be one of the very simplest ways here. Because it is already given few of the coefficients are positive. And plus we have the characteristic equation. Just let's try to find out all the coefficients. If the coefficients are of the same sign, we can say that yeah, it satisfies the first condition. Then we can go for the other condition. Okay. But first let's see this. But we don't actually need to go for the second condition because it is just a second order polynomial. If it were third, then we needed to go. If it is still second only, then just checking the sign would actually help us. So what we can say from here, if we compare, let me write it here. If we write j square plus be plus k kd s plus k kp is equal to 0. If we compare it to a standard second order equation, it's going to be a square plus bs plus c is equal to 0. Okay, so from here a is j, b is be plus k kd, your c, this is also, yeah, your c is k kp, right? So j is greater than 0, it's given in the question. This complete term is also greater than 0 and this is also greater than 0. Okay, so since all the coefficients are positive, are all positive, okay, by Routh-Hurwitz criteria, we can say that the system is stable. So what was actually the requirement? Agar A is greater than 0, then B should be also greater than 0 and C should be also greater than 0. If A is less than 0, then B should also be less than 0 and C should also be less than 0. Essentially, all of them should be of the same sign. So you have some equation of this format, and if you have negative sign in all the coefficients, then that negative actually does not matter because all the negatives will cancel out with 0 and you'll get just the positive signs. So the thing which is required is only that all of them should have the same sign. That is all we need in this question. So your condition is satisfied for Routh-Hurwitz criteria, and from here what we can say, the system is stable. So our first option was unstable. It is definitely wrong because unstable systems have at least one root with positive real part, which does not happen here. I mean, all the signs are same, then it is not a problem. You don't have any pole which would lie in the right half, and we did not check that because it is just second order system. So what happens when your system is first order, you are able to say it with the help of sign. When it is second order, then also you can say it with the help of sign by solving the quadratic equation. But when you go on higher and higher, it is not always possible to find out the roots. Let's say you have seventh order system. It's difficult to find out what are the roots of the system and then tell the system is stable or not stable. So Raoult-Hurwitz criteria just applies two conditions over there. You have all the entries filled, and if there is some change in sign in sign, then that means there is some pole right lying in the right half of the S plane, and that is sufficient, right? So yeah, that is why we use this. The second option is stable, right? Because both the roots will have the negative real part. Since all the coefficients are positive, the system is asymptotically stable. The third option is marginally stable. It's wrong because marginally stability occurs when there are purely imaginary roots, which does not apply here, and may or may not be stable. It's ambiguous, and that is not happening, right? Because we have the direct answer here. Okay, so your final answer is stable, right? Then let's move to the next question. Okay. For the above system in question 1, the steady state error is directly proportional to what? Dynamic torque due to motion of the links, Kp of the controller, Kd of the controller, or K of the controller. Okay. So we want to comment on steady state error. Okay. So what would be, let's first look at PD controller, because this question is related to question number 1. That means our controller remains the same. Okay. So let's check what is the control input actually. What is coming out of the controller. So if I make the block diagram of the system, it's going to be, here is the controller. Here is your robot. Here is your output. And then before this, you have reference value of whatever it is, whatever signal, whatever you want to achieve with this thing, robot. Then here is your sensor gain, or I'll say feedback. Okay, and here is your next thing. So this is your actual value, and here is being computed in error. So basically this controller is your P, in our case it is PD controller. This is your PD controller. So what it is doing? So if I want to find out what is UT over here, then what it would be? Would be UT is equal to Kp into ET plus Kd into E dot T, right? Now we actually say this. I'll tell you why we say, because we should go into the derivation for this. I'll say it, but let's see. For a step input, okay, the derivative term vanishes in steady state, sorry, in steady state, because why do we say this? Because E dot T tends to 0. So only proportional gain, I'll just come up with a derivation, but let me write this. So only proportional gain affects the steady state error. Okay. So if let's say I want to write what is happening in steady state, that means t would tend to infinity, and then we want to find et, it would be equal to 1 plus 1 upon 1 plus kp. Do you remember the table that we have in control system for this? Let me check. If oh no, I'm presenting my tab, so I won't be able to show that to you. But yeah, this is what you have for steady state. Just let me switch it. This is very funny, very, very So when you see the table, what actually is there? Step input, ramp input, and parabolic input. We also call it acceleration input. All of them are here. Here it is type 0 system, type 1 system, type 2 system. Here you have 1 upon 1 plus Kp. Here you have 1 upon Kv. Here you have 1 upon Ka. It's infinity, infinity, 0, infinity, 0, 0. Right? This is what you get. But here I am saying that 1 upon 1 plus Kp is correct. Right. So let's see that. Yeah. So let's say my controller here is given by Kp plus Kds. If I convert it into Laplace domain, it is just PD controller. Okay. Your plant as in robot joint about which we are talking, okay, is given by PS is equal to 1 upon Js square plus Bs. And we also have in question that we have, okay, let's consider it to be unit step. Okay, so here for unit step your RS or reference is 1 by S, right? So what is your open loop transfer function? Your RS is 1 by S, that is your reference, your CS is your controller, and PS is your, so let me make it clear from here. Your open loop transfer function is given by multiplication of these terms. And closed loop transfer function would involve everything. Okay. So let's first find out what is our open loop transfer function. Okay. Open loop transfer function. Okay. Let's say we call it to be LS. Your LS is actually CS into PS, where your CS is Kp plus Kd S into your PS is 1 upon J square plus PS. Okay. So a closed loop transfer function is, let's call it to be TS, would be given by LS. Consider it to be a negative feedback system since we do not have any information about the feedback. So it would be LS upon 1 plus LS. So it would be Kp plus Kd S upon Js square plus Bs plus Kp plus Kd S. Okay. We are interested in the steady state error. So this is something that we should know how are we finding out. Now, let's go off to steady state error. Okay. Your steady state error your steady state error ESS is defined as limit t tends to infinity et, which can also be written in Laplace domain as limit s tends to 0 SES, right? Where your ES is actually RS minus YS. I hope that is clear. Let's see here. This is your RS and this is your YS. This feedback is 1 in our case. So your error is RS minus YS only. Okay. So here we can write ES is equal to RS minus YS, and YS is also equal to, or YS upon RS was actually TS, your closed loop transfer function, right? This is what you found out here. This was YS upon RS is your TS. So YS upon RS is TS. That means your YS is equal to TS into RS. Now, when we have ES is equal to RS minus YS को क्या लिख सकते हैं? TS into RS. Then what we can write? RS को कॉमन लेकर 1 minus TS. Okay. So this is your steady state error. Okay. Now let's go to ESS, which is limit S tends to 0, SES, which is limit S tends to 0, S into what? RS. RS is 1 by S because it is a unit step input, and then we have 1 minus TS. So these cancel out, right? And from here what you get is, what do you get here? Limit S tends to 0, just 1 minus TS. ठीक है, अभी ये रहता है. अभी once you have this, what we'll do next? We'll write ESS is limit S tends to 0, and what we can write? 1 minus CS into PS upon 1 plus CS PS. Okay. Now, once we have this, we can simplify it as, पहले तो इसको simplify करो. 1 plus CS PS will go in the numerator. It will cancel out the terms, and in the denominator will have 1 plus CS PS. We want to estimate it at S tends to 0. So it would be 1 plus C0 P0. Right? Now, let's plug in the values. When we have done this, so your C0 is actually KP, क्योंकि controller was KP plus KDS. ठीक है? Because why your C0 is KP? Because KD into S actually tends to 0. Let's talk about P0. What was your P0? What was your P? P was 1 upon JS square plus BS. Okay. So J into 0 plus B into 0. This would take you to infinity. But how do we actually model the system? We take a K also here. So here you have some gain remaining even in the beginning. So it is 1 by K. Okay. So your steady state error actually becomes 1 upon 1 plus Kp into 1 by K. So it becomes 1 plus Kp by K. Okay. So from here your steady state error is 1 upon 1 plus Kp into K. Now let's move back to the question. Okay. So we were at this point that okay, we want to find out what is steady state error directly proportional to. So this is your answer ultimately, which we derived right now. So for a step input, the derivative term vanishes in steady state because E dot T is equal to 0. We saw that in Laplace domain as well. So only the proportional gain affects the steady state error. So it is 1 upon 1 plus Kp into 1 by K. 1 by K is multiplied with Kp. This is a steady state error is inversely, this steady state error is inversely proportional to Kp. right? So it is directly proportional to 1 by Kp or decreases when Kp increases. Okay. So in our question we have directly proportional, right? Um, just a second. Just wait for a moment. Okay.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
in my question it is, the question is like for the system, the steady state error is options are directly proportional to dynamic torque and inversely proportional to Kp. Then second option is directly proportional to dynamic torque and directly proportional to Kp.
Yeah.
Third option is inversely proportional to dynamic torque and directly proportional to Kp.
Y-
And the fourth option is inversely proportional to dynamic torque and inversely proportional to Kp.
Okay.
So
So
as
it,
of now, we got inversely proportional to Kp.
right, which is
But
actually not required here. So let's check
yeah,
the other
but
option.
in,
Huh. Bolo?
directly proportional to dynamic torque.
Yeah.
That relation we have to check whether it is
Yeah.
correct or
Yeah.
not.
So we'll move to that. Because KD के साथ कोई रिलेशन नहीं है और K के साथ भी नहीं. So let's move to the other option. So yeah. So from here, so the characteristic equation here, which was in question 1, gives dynamics, but steady state error depends on system type and input, right? So in case of the single link robot, the system is second order and the control input torque must overcome the dynamic torque caused by inertia and link motion. That is a dynamics of rotating bodies. So here in our case, the robot has non-zero dynamics, right? We have some inertia, we have some damping factor. So a PD controller cannot eliminate the steady state error for non-zero constant disturbances or non-zero desired positions under dynamic load. So the steady state error is basically affected by how much dynamic torque is required to hold a position. Okay, I'll tell you. So the steady state error is required in proportion to the required dynamic torque due to motion, when especially in the presence of gravity, acceleration or link forces. So the steady state error depends on how much torque is needed to balance the motion induced dynamics. PD controller can't compensate perfectly for this. Okay, so steady state error will come due to dynamic torque. Because if there is motion in the link, we are going to have some error and it cannot be compensated by the PD controller. And we cannot completely depend on this K. So as we had found out this K, we are not sure if this K is being referred to here. We cannot be sure about it. So this is not in the option definitely. This is also incorrect and this we cannot say. And since one of them is correct, so it should be this. So in your question that you asked me, it should be directly proportional to dynamic torque due to motion of the links and inversely proportional to Kp of the controller. Right? Because
Yes, ma'am.
yeah. Because this was an important aspect. I thought solving this Kp would give me the answer, but yeah, it turned out to be I had to look for dynamic torque. Okay. But yeah, this solves all the answers. So yeah, the steady state error basically depends on how much torque is needed to balance any kind of motion induced dynamics. That is important. PD control won't be able to compensate that. It does not. So the second option is KP wala ulta ho gaya, and KD basically affects damping and it's not affecting the steady state error. Okay. Now let's move to the next question. A single joint robot is controlled by a PID compensator. The system can become unstable for some values of Kp, Ki, Kd, K. Okay. So first thing we'll write what is a PID controller. Kp into Et plus Kd into E dot T plus Ki into integral of Et dt. Okay. So adding a PID controller actually increases the order of the system because we have an integrator coming over here. तो integrator का जो ये Ki upon S वाला term है, it actually increases the order of the system. And it may destabilize it depending on the gain values. So what happens? Okay. This integral term, Ki not Ki into पूरा लिखना चाहिए, Ki into Et dt. Okay. It actually contributes a pole at the origin. Okay. It can create a problem. It can make the system unstable if not properly tuned. Also, high Ki can cause instability due to integrator wind up or excessive oscillations. So what is integral wind up? Okay, we'll come to that later. Also, improper combination of Kp, Ki and Kd can also lead to instability, but Ki is the most problematic thing when it comes to destabilization if it is not tuned properly. So in our case, the answer is Ki. Okay, not Kp because Kp affects the proportional response. Generally involves stability unless extremely high but less likely to destabilize alone. तो जब तक Kp को बहुत ज़्यादा हाई नहीं करती है तब तक प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. It would not destabilize the system at least. Kd adds damping, typically enhances stability. But Ki is integral action. It accumulates error and can lead to instability if the gain is too high. K is ambiguous because it might like be plant or feedback constant as in the previous question also, but it is not a controller parameter, so we'll not touch that. Okay, now why Ki is the correct option? So I told you there can be a problem of integral wind up. And this is a very big problem. So what happens whenever you are using PID controller, this always happens. This problem occurs in PID controller when the integral term accumulates large error. Because we are ultimately accumulating, right? From t is equal to 0 to up until now, we are just integrating the error. So accumulates large error during periods when actuator cannot respond. So error will be very high, right? So we get mostly a saturation limit. So this is the reason for integral wind up. So integral, if the control output matlab controller ka output hits a limit, for example motor's max speed or torque, but error remains large, say during a large set point change this is happening, the integrator keeps accumulating error even though the actuator cannot respond further. Once the error starts decreasing, the integrator is still charged, causing the system to overshoot, oscillate, or take longer to settle. So, this is one of the bigger reasons to make the system stable. Kp, Kd do not. This does. So we can have the effect as, what could be the effects? Effects could be, there could be an overshoot. Okay. It could be slower response. It could be instability. Or it could be poor tracking. All of these can be the issue. Okay. So how do we fix it? अगर इतना प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है इंटीग्रेटर को यूज करके, तो हाउ आर वी गोइंग टू फिक्स इट? व्हाट वी एक्चुअली डू और टू मिटिगेट इट इज, we use clamping. Clamping actually disables integration when actuator is saturated. So yeah, I'll write this also. Fixes. One of them is clamping. Okay. Second is back calculation. So what we do here? Feed the saturation difference back to the integrator to reduce its value. And the third is conditional integration. Which means only integrate when output is within actuator limits. जब वो लिमिट को टच किया है तब नहीं. So yeah, these are the fixes that we do. So that is why our correct answer in this case is KI. Okay. After this, let's move to the next question. Okay. A robot and a human cooperative control task, that is carrying some object together, is very often controlled using what? PD control, PID control, or force control, or impedance control. Okay. So when a robot and a human physically interact, especially in some collaboration, co-manipulation tasks, the controller must, what should controller take care of? It should react very safely to human applied forces. It should not be very high force acting, and if it can damage something or threaten the safety of the human, it should allow compliant behavior, not rigid behavior. And it should maintain a balance between position and force control. ठीक है, दोनों में बैलेंस मेंटेन करना जरूरी है. दिस इज वेयर impedance control shines. Okay, so what is impedance control? So it basically regulates the dynamic relationship between force and motion. For example, like a spring damper system. It defines how the robot should respond to external forces. Okay, rather than trying to track a trajectory exactly. Okay, it is perfect for human robot interaction, especially when the forces are unpredictable. So human applies varying force. If we are collaborating on tasks with this robot does not know your inertia matrix, it does not know your C matrix. It has to estimate all of them from the calculation between what force it is estimating and what is the acceleration that it has. So it has to find out the unknown terms. So it is basically used where the forces are unpredictable and safety and compliance are critical. Okay. So in our case, the question was asked that it is a collaborative task carrying an object together, and it is very often controlled using PD, PID, or force or impedance control. So PD control is very simple, right? It is very simple, but only controls position and velocity, does not handle force interaction or compliance. So this is incorrect. For PID control, it adds integral action but still targets position control. Not ideal for human robot force interaction. Third one is force control. Controls only force, not position velocity simultaneously. Too rigid for dynamic cooperation task. Okay. And the last one is impedance control. It balances both force and motion, ideal for cooperative tasks with human. Okay. So that is why our correct answer is impedance control. I hope this is clear. Let's move to the next question. In the drivetrain dynamics for series elastic actuators, an elastic element is introduced in between motor and the links. In such cases, the open loop characteristic equation is given by this. This has what? Two poles or roots at origin and a pair of complex conjugate poles. No roots at origin but a pair of complex poles. No roots or poles, only roots at the origin. So yeah, we want to basically find what is the nature of roots. That's all we want to find. Okay, so let's solve this. This S should be small. This is a typo, so it should be okay. This is your given. Let's factor out the S square. Right? So what are the two roots? Let's check. Two roots are definitely 0. Right? S square is equal to 0. So from here we can say two roots at origin. Okay? This comes from S square is equal to 0. Now JL square plus K into JL plus JM is equal to 0. From here you can write S square is equal to minus K JL plus JM upon JL JM. If you find out what are the two roots, you'll get plus minus J under root K JL plus JM upon JL JM. So these are two purely imaginary complex conjugate poles. So there are two roots at the origin and a pair of complex conjugate poles on the imaginary axis. Okay. So this is your correct option. Okay. The second option is no roots at origin but a pair of conjugate poles is definitely wrong because we have a square terms also term also there. Then no roots or no poles. This is a fourth order polynomial. It must have four roots. How it cannot have no roots? And the last option is only roots at the origin. No, there are two more imaginary roots apart from two roots at the origin. So yeah, this is your correct answer for this question. Okay, now let's move to the next question. The system in question 5 is controlled by a PD compensator or controller. So if the feedback is taken from the motor end, the system is always Unstable, stable, marginally stable, none of the above. Okay, so it is the same system. I'll just write the system again. Imaginary, let's not write it completely. I'll write plus minus j omega. Omega will be the other term. So the open loop system is what? There is no damping in the system. What should be the answer to this question? It is without the motor feedback as of now. It is just the system. So what is the stability of the system?
Imaginary stable.
What is imaginary stable?
Sorry, the system is marginally stable because two poles are there at the imaginary axis.
And the other two? Okay, so you're right. This the open loop system is marginally stable because no roots lie in the right of the S-plane. Now let's add a PD controller. What would happen? Okay. So it would be motor end feedback. Motor end feedback does not measure the motion of the load, right? This is important point. Okay. So what can happen? This can cause lack of damping in overall closed loop system, especially for the elastic or spring component. So even if a PD controller is added, if it's acting based on motor side feedback, it cannot stabilize the oscillations occurring due to elasticity between motor and load, because it is just taking the motor side feedback. So PD controller won't help and the closed loop system will remain marginally stable. Sustained oscillations may exist due to the elastic element. So it is definitely not unstable. It is not stable as the poles are on the imaginary axis. So not asymptotically stable. It is marginally stable because there are two integrators and two undamped oscillatory poles. So it is marginally stable and none of the above is no. Okay. So PD controller, motor end feedback. If the feedback is taken from this motor end and it is being used with some controller, it does not help because we don't actually measure what is the motion of the link and it cannot compensate for that. Okay. That is the only reason here. Okay.
Excuse me, ma'am, I have a doubt.
Yeah.
My question is that if the feedback is taken from the motor and the system is always and the options are unstable, stable, globally asymptotically stable, and the fourth option is either stable or unstable. So
Can you?
marginally stable means either stable or unstable, right?
No. Can you repeat the question once more?
Ma'am, the same question, but the options are first option is unstable, Second option is stable. And the third one is globally asymptotically stable. And fourth option is either stable or unstable.
No, no, no. Don't call marginally stable to be unstable. If these the four are the options, then your option should be stable. Stable does
Okay.
not mean asymptotically stable. So if you have the option as stable, it is not equivalent to asymptotically stable. So stable can have two meanings. Either it is asymptotically stable, in which all the poles would lie in the left half of the S plane, or it is marginally stable. And this marginally stable can never be written as unstable. So this is wrong. So you'll have to write it as stable. Stable is the most suitable option right now.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, let's move to the next question. In force control tasks in constrained environments, force control. In constrained environments, the constraints that result from the mechanical and geometrical or geometric characteristic of the task configuration are called artificial constraints, no constraints, natural constraints, none of the above. So in robotics, especially during force or impedance control in constrained environments, example, you're pushing something, you're sliding something, you are inserting something, you're running a screwdriver, or you are pushing against the wall, or whatever. We basically deal with two types of constraints. They are natural constraints and artificial constraints. Okay. So natural constraints basically arise from the physical setup. It is not some constraint that you are adding. Your logic, your control law, it's not like that. It is natural constraint. Hai, I cannot disobey this law. This arises from physical setup. Okay. So it could be due to contact surfaces. It could be due to geometries. It could be due to joint limits. Okay. It could be due to environmental interaction. So environmental interaction could also play a role. So yeah. So they are inherent to mechanical geometric configuration. These are basically imposed by control laws or software logic. These are the constraints that you are putting for doing a particular task. This is not natural constraint. So first option is artificial constraint. Artificial constraints are extremely imposed, not from task's physical nature. Second option is no constraint. It is clearly incorrect because it is a constrained environment, right? The third option is natural constraint because it is defined by mechanical and geometric properties of the task. And yeah, so this is your correct answer. Okay. Now this is clear. Now let's move to the next question. While turning a vertical screw with a screwdriver, the force applied at the tip of the screwdriver in the vertical direction is a artificial constraint, natural constraint, not a constraint, may or may not be a constraint. तो vertical screw को fit कर screwdriver से the force applied at the tip of the screwdriver in the vertical direction is what kind of constraint? Okay. So when we are turning a vertical screw, the screwdriver must apply force in downward direction. This is must. Why? Because we want to maintain contact between screwdriver tip and screw head. Okay. We also want to prevent slippage during torque application. Right. So this force does not result from mechanical or geometric structure alone. It is required for successful task execution, but it is not enforced naturally by the environment. It is our task. We need to do a task. That is why we want the things to happen this way. So it is a force that a controller or human must apply intentionally. Okay, and it can vary depending on screw tightness, screwdriver fit, or operator strategy. Okay, so it can best be classified as artificial constraint. Okay, this is the correct answer. The first option is artificial constraint. It is needed to complete a task but does not arise from natural geometry. Natural constraint is not correct because this force isn't imposed by geometry like a wall or surface would. Okay, and yeah, both of the other options are incorrect. This is the correct option. Okay, let's move to the next question. A multi-finger robot hand is required to grasp an object using hybrid control approach. This would allow the control of force or motion, or only position of the object. Now, what is hybrid control? This is important. Okay, so it refers to controlling both motion, position, and velocity and force in different directions. Okay, so in contact directions, which is basically where motion is constrained, force control is applied because there's no point of applying velocity control there. In free directions, motion control is used. Okay, so if the example is with multi-finger grasping, we want to control force applied to an object to prevent slipping in the normal direction. Okay, so let's say this is your object that you want to hold. We don't want the object to slip, so you apply the force in this normal direction because you want to prevent slipping. Okay, simultaneously you also want to control the motion of the object or fingers, so it can be this and this direction where you want to touch it and hold it, so that would be motion control. So whatever is required you can do. So what hybrid control does, hybrid control basically deals with control of both force and motion depending on task space direction, what is required. Okay, first option is force. It is only a part of control. Hybrid means more than that. Motion is also not just hybrid is not just motion, and force on motion is correct. And the last option is only position of object. It is too limited. Force is also critical in grasping. Position only does not work. Okay, so force or motion is the correct option. Okay, now This is the last question that we're taking today. So in applications like grinding or writing, position and force are required to be controlled. In such cases, it is possible to control the force or position if they are orthogonal to each other, parallel to each other, oblique to each other, may be orthogonal or may be parallel. So again, hybrid control. Main point is position and force can't, or actually can be controlled simultaneously but not in the same direction, right? It can be in different directions. They must act in orthogonal direction. Okay, so what happens if I in our case, when we are taking the writing example, we apply force vertically, right, in downward direction to press downward. And why? To press the pen on paper. So this is the direction in which we apply. Okay, for position control, horizontally, it should go in this and this direction. Okay, to draw shapes or to write letters to go further. So it is happening in vertical and horizontal direction. In grinding, the tool moves tangentially, which is position, and presses normally, which is force. So this is possible only when force and position control directions are orthogonal. They don't interfere with each other. So in this case, the correct option is orthogonal to each other, because that's the condition for simultaneous control in hybrid control frameworks. Parallel to each other cannot control force and position simultaneously in the same direction. So it cannot be parallel. Oblique to each other would result in some kind of interference and unpredictable behavior, right? Because you'll have some component in each other's direction. And the last option is maybe orthogonal or parallel. No, only orthogonal directions are valid for simultaneous control. Any other direction is not suitable. So the final answer is orthogonal to each other. Okay. We'll have MATLAB problems corresponding to this in the next class. We do not have any MATLAB problem as of now. So if you have any questions, you can ask. No questions? So in the next class, yeah.
Ma'am, in my assignment question, there is a question that in the feed-forward control method, the options are dynamic torque is computed offline and fed forward, dynamic torque is computed online and fed forward, dynamic torque is computed either online or offline and fed forward, and the fourth option is dynamic torque is computed either online or offline and fed back.
The fed back would not be there. It is fed forward, and I suppose it is on the go. मतलब online होता है. Because you
Okay.
actually write the dynamics of your system, and every time you are using it to, yeah, it should be online.
Okay, ma'am.
Any more question?
No, ma'am.
Okay then. Just wanted to say that in the next lecture in week 11, okay, we have this multi-finger robot hands where we are going to basically see grip or the grasp matrix, and we are also going to start with biped locomotion with gates. Okay. Okay, there are 3 lectures, and then in week 12 we have bipedal locomotion and optimization of bipedal gait and multi-agent robot systems. Okay, so next class will be looking more on grasping and all those things. Probably we can have a MATLAB problem there also, because that would be good. So yeah, read all the lectures or go through all the lectures, whatever is there, lecture 26, 27, 28. So it would be interesting. It would use all the concepts that you have learned till now. All of them will come into play in these lectures, whatever you have for the next 2 weeks. So you'll be able to utilize them for different robotic systems. That is really good. In the last week, we'll have we have optimization and multi-agent robot systems. I think we'll go with some path planning algorithms also, because multi-agent is good for that sake. So probably we can go with some trajectory planning algorithm. I'll look to that. In the next class, we'll have some MATLAB problem. Okay, then we'll meet next Monday again at the same time. And yeah, I'll be scheduling an extra session as well at the end of the course. So I'm planning it to take it this way. On the next 7th April, it would be just 2-hour session, like the regular session, no changes to that. On 14th April, that is going to be the last session, week 12 session, I'll be taking one extra session. So instead of 6 to 8, we'll have from 5 to 8, 1 hour extra. So that is how I have filled the form. You'll get the announcement also when you'll be reaching week 12. So that is an extra session that I'll be taking apart from the normal session, and will be done on April 12th completely with the course. Okay. Okay, then see you next Monday. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.